Dr. X and the Mystery of the Wax Museum don't have the name recognition nor the iconic imagery of Dracula, Dr. Jekyll, King Kong and their pre-code contemporaries, but they have something else. For the first time, the horror was in colour. Horror films had never looked like this before, and they never would again. In the wake of Universal's Dracula and Frankenstein, other Hollywood studios, badly hit by the Depression, scrambled to get into the horror business. MGM and Paramount traded Shocks with Freaks and The Island of Lost Souls, while RKO went big. But with Dr. X, Warner Brothers decided to give horror something completely new: colour.
That's a heart. I've kept it alive for 3 years.
Except that's not what happened at all. Warner Brothers had a contract with Technicolor to make films using the two-strip process, hoping that colour would be as successful for them as talking pictures had been. It wasn't. It was costly, complicated, and the novelty wore off quick. Warner's would happily have never made another colour film. But their contract called for 2 more films, and Technicolor wasn't letting them out of it. So, far from colour being a gimmick to sell horror, horror was a gimmick to get audiences to sit through colour, which wasn't even mentioned on the posters for fear of putting audiences off. Two-strip Technicolor used an in-camera prism to split light into green and red, giving scenes a lurid, dreamlike atmosphere, ideal for horror. But not for Warner Brothers. Under production head Darryl F. Zanuck, Warner's had developed their ripped-from-the-headlines style. Films like Little Caesar, Public Enemy, I Was a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. This was the studio of charismatic gangsters, sassy dames, and crusading journalists, all talking at a mile a minute.
Listen, let me get started on the story anyhow, will you?
All right, go to it.
Horror was box office, so they would make their peace with it. But Dr. X would be a very Warner Brothers horror.
Are you bad luck?
I find the wisecracking journalists who infest movies of the 30s and 40s irritating, and at first glance, Lee Taylor seems just another.
Huh? I'm a building inspector. I work nights so I won't get sunburned.
But actor Lee Tracy has the benefit of originality. He created the fast-talking journo archetype in hit play The Front Page.
Only I spent all last night laying next to a bunch of stiffs, looking at a lot of goofy guys. I let a dame poke a gun in my stomach, and then I let a dumb policeman slip me a trick cigar.
And would play the character for most of the rest of his career. The opening scenes establish the gritty urban atmosphere and the tone. Somewhat self-defeatingly, Zanuck encouraged theatres to market the film as mystery or even comedy romance. Anything but horror.
This is the 6th murder in the same number of months.
The film balances these elements, not always successfully, but it's the horror we remember today, along with the stars, Lionel Atwill and... Fay Wray's first scream in a horror film is bizarrely unmotivated. That's her father. The scene was added to make you suspect him. Wray had already completed most of her scenes for the film that would make that scream famous. Popping back to RKO sporadically as the animation of her co-star progressed. In between, she made Dr. X and Mystery of the Wax Museum for Warner Brothers, The Most Dangerous Game for RKO, and low-budget quickie The Vampire Bat, all released in 1932 and 33, following them up with Black Moon in 1934, a run that led Wray to avoid horror for most of the rest of her career.
The moon. Perfect.
Lionel Atwill had no such qualms. The veteran actor had almost 30 years of stage experience behind him, but had taken to movie acting quickly and enjoyed it, saying, "Frankly, I've had my fill of art." Though he acted in many genres, it's horror for which we remember him, from pre-code shockers like Murders in the Zoo to becoming a mainstay of Universal's Frankenstein series. His performance is detailed and well observed, but above all, Dr. X is fun.
This is cannibalism.
Atwill plays Dr. Xavier, who, regardless of what the Rocky Horror Picture Show would later claim, will not build a creature.
What's your theory, Doctor?
The cops believe that the recent Moonkiller murders were committed by someone at Xavier's research academy, and they are spoiled for suspects. There's pervy Dr. Haynes,
Look,
one-armed Dr. Wells, crippled Dr. Duke, and one-eyed Dr. Rowitz. I doubt Dr. X established the trope of the disabled bad guy, but it can't have helped.
I am Dr. Xavier's butler, sir.
There's also creepy butler Otto, played by George Rosner, who wrote the first draft of the script, based on the play by Comstock and Miller. Little of Rosner's draft remained after it was reworked by Earl Baldwin and Robert Tasker. Tasker was an ex-con who made a career out of lending authenticity to crime stories. This is one of his more unusual assignments, but the streetwise dialogue remains.
Only stiffs go in there tonight.
Xavier has a proposition for the police.
I can conduct a series of tests which in 48 hours will conclusively prove whether or not the killer is a member of this academy.
He relocates to his old dark house and his basement lab, a fabulous design by Anton Grott. He hooks the suspects up to an elaborate lie detector and, like Hamlet, restages the murder before them. One of the problems of the two-strip process was that it required 4 times more light than black and white. For the actors, the heat from the incandescent lights was excruciating, Atwill recalling that his lab coat became too hot to touch. For the wax figures, it was too much. They melted and were replaced with extras.
A beautiful young girl, violently killed as she lay on a hospital bed recovering from an illness.
But Xavier's plan does not run smoothly.
The guilty man is... stabbed in the base of the brain.
The plot of Dr. X is ludicrous.
Duke, you're walking.
The police hold off their investigation while one of the suspects conducts an experiment that has already resulted in 1 death.
Hold your men up just a little longer. Give me one more chance.
Which is still more believable than the love story.
You have absolutely no business photographing so attractively.
To modern viewers, and I dare say a few at the time, the comedy is painful. And the Laguna Beach scene is a jarring tonal shift.
If you only knew the things that have happened.
The introduction of the Moon Killer is undramatic, and the Max Factor mask lacks the mobility of a Jack Pierce makeup. It's a jolly enough film, but nothing exceptional. Until its final act. With the suspects again locked into the machine and Wray on the slab for the reenactment, the killer's identity is revealed. And we're into one of the most remarkable horror scenes of the time.
Synthetic flesh.
Not an unmasking, but a masking. The use of colour is extraordinary, as Dr. Wells slavers synthetic flesh onto his face, delivering on the unreal atmosphere, a world away from that urban opening. The tension is built to a crescendo. It's really frustrating that Wells then pauses to explain his motivation.
Think I went to Africa to study cannibalism? I went there to get samples of the human flesh that the natives eat. I'll make a crippled world whole again.
Which is very laudable. It's even more frustrating that Wray just lies there waiting to be saved. Dr. X has some great moments.
Your pulses are connected with the magnetic rotators.
Full-blooded performances.
We are all under suspicion of murder.
What? Absurd. Ridiculous.
What imbecile thought that up?
And one exceptional set piece. The most luridly compelling horror transformation of its time. It's uneven but enjoyable and very well made. Cinematographer Ray Renahan managing to keep the camera mobile despite the bulky colour equipment. Filming was observed by Natalie Kalmus, ex-wife of Technicolor chairman Herbert Kalmus, there to advise on how colours would photograph. This black cloak is actually maroon, and white wasn't used at all as it just didn't register. To Technicolor's irritation, a black and white print was shot simultaneously.
You're right.
Warner's thought this would cut their losses, but the first feature-length colour horror made at the height of the horror boom needed no help. Not only was the film a hit, but patrons preferred the colour version. It was another feather in the cap of its director, Michael Curtiz. Best remembered for Casablanca, it's almost impossible to sum up Michael Curtiz's career except to say prolific. In his native Hungary and elsewhere around Europe, Mihai Kertész had directed around 70 features and co-written fabled lost film Dracula's Death before he was invited to the US by Warner Brothers to direct Noah's Ark, which they immediately postponed in favour of something cheaper. When the renamed Curtiz got to direct Noah's Ark, it made his reputation as a director and a hard taskmaster. Extras were hospitalised and rumours of drownings, though unproved, do persist. Even Curtiz himself broke a leg showing a stuntman how to do a fall. His diverse career would encompass Robin Hood, Angels with Dirty Faces, Yankee Doodle Dandy, White Christmas, and many more. His biographer Alan K. Rhodey saying that he lived for making movies. Curtiz was already Warner's go-to guy for colour when he took on Dr. X in his usual way. Stylish, detailed, and relentless, driving actors through 20-hour days to hit the production deadline. Wray described him as like part of the camera, recalling him complaining when the crew stopped for lunch, saying, "I don't eat, why should they eat?" Curtiz gets some credit for the creation of the Screen Actors Guild a few years later, not because he supported it, but because he made it necessary. Wray was one of its first members. When Curtiz was on a film, nothing else mattered. Cinematographer Hal Moore summing him up, saying, "He was a brutal son of a bitch. He had no consideration for anyone else's feelings, but was a very kindly guy." To me, Dr. X feels like a learning experience in horror filmmaking, the lessons carried through into the following year's Mystery of the Wax Museum. Sculptor Ivan Igor gives Lionel Atwill one of his best screen roles. The film hitting the ground running with this incredible sequence. The nightmarish faces of the melting dummies were only spotted during filming, so close-ups were added later. The comedy in Dr. X is used to undercut the horror. Nothing to be scared of, we're all just having a laugh. But in the Wax Museum, there's no punchline as we meet the killer, stealing a corpse. It's unapologetically horror, and any humour comes from character.
As I live and breathe and wear spats, the prince.
The wisecracking reporter remains.
I don't know what he was, but he made Frankenstein look like a lily.
I find it less annoying when it's a woman, or perhaps when it's Glenda Farrell.
Happy New Year, Ambrose.
For Farrell, the role of Florence would prove a dry run for playing ace reporter Torchy Blaine.
Good evening, Miss Blaine.
You wouldn't throw a story to a poor starving girl reporter, would you?
No. And you keep away from Gehagen.
Why? People beginning to talk?
Who inspired Superman's Lois Lane.
It's got everything. It's got sex, it's got violence, it's got the ethnic angle. I mean, look at
So is a lady wrestler with a foreign accent.
Though lower down the credits than Wray, Farrell is the real heroine here, recognising this Wax Museum dummy as a missing girl, pursuing her leads, romancing a millionaire murder suspect.
Will you marry me?
How much money have you got?
And sparring with her editor.
I got a look at that dump down there a little while ago, and if they haven't got a wax figure of Joan Gale in that lineup, then I'm crazy.
We'll grant that.
What?
I adore Wray, but Glenda Farrell is terrific in this. She was in some absolute classics, yet never gets talked about, so check her out.
Gee, that's a pretty dress. Have I seen it before?
Yes, I think so.
Thank goodness that's settled.
Wray herself appears early on as a wax dummy of Marie Antoinette.
Beautiful composition. Even those delicate veins and the texture of that flesh.
Almost a metaphor for her role as Charlotte Duncan. She's there to look beautiful and be an object of obsession for Atwill, showing up 30 minutes in this code-baiting moment. Both Mystery of the Wax Museum and Dr. X are pre-code films, made in that brief window after the production code governing censorship was established, but before it was strictly enforced.
Since we retired, this body has been... It has been... I know.
Cannibalism is rare in mainstream films of any era, and alongside the horror, we get this scene.
Say, what's the hurry, big boy?
Originally, there was a line about the girls, but censors requested it be cut.
Very good.
So Curtiz added more girls, just to make it clear what this place is. Another deletion was the lascivious Dr. Haynes offering Fay Wray a book of Japanese erotic art. And Lee's joy buzzer, which has provided so little humour throughout,
Pleased to meet you.
gets this scandalous payoff.
Come here to me.
Oh, Mr. Taylor.
There's also a gag modern audiences often miss.
It's still.
Not scientific apparatus, a still for making bootleg liquor.
There's your corpse.
Already a bit of a joke, Prohibition would be repealed 10 months after Mystery of the Wax Museum was released.
Hey! What do you think you're doing? Put that stuff back there.
Not on your life. This is my percentage.
But making Florence a brazen drinker would still have hit problems after the code was toughened up.
I never believed there were women like you in the world.
In a few years, there wouldn't be.
Oh, sweetheart.
Oh, hello.
How's your sex life?
This flouting of the code also serves the plot.
Give him an egg.
This is a drug deal. Professor Darcy, played by Edmund Carew, who also appears in Dr. X, is a heroin addict, which the police use to get information out of him.
Never saw a junkie hold out so long.
Pre-code police are generally rougher.
The only thing I did for him was to keep track of the man named Worth, who runs the place where you arrested me tonight.
Incidentally, the code forbid showing how crimes were committed, so the New York Censor Board cut this shot.
Wait, Joe!
I feel like arson is one you could work out for yourself. The colour photography is wonderful, atmospheric, horrifying, otherworldly. Incidentally, because of the problems with how colours registered, the wax dummies had their own makeup. But Wax Museum's greatest asset is Atwill.
Look at these claws. If I had those hands of yours...
But the mental scars are as deep as the physical, as the crippled artist recreates his exhibition, killing those who resemble his original works and turning them into statues.
He's a statue. A silly wax statue.
It's a complex character,
All those beautiful things that were destroyed.
working through passion, pain, obsession, and sublimated lust.
I'm Marie Antoinette.
Perce Westmore's startling makeup was kept from Fay Wray, so her shock would be genuine, but unfortunately the scene had to be reshot.
Let me go, let me go. Let me...
Still a great moment.
You fiend.
Just to be clear, Wray didn't like that line either, suggesting that Charlotte should have a more sympathetic reaction.
You fiend.
No!
Which I think would have been quite interesting, but they're going for Phantom of the Opera here. Because Igor is supposed to be wearing a wax mask throughout, Atwill tried to keep his face immobile, which resulted in all his close-ups being cut, because, according to Atwill, it gave away the ending. This time, the action doesn't stop for explanations as the police arrive. Stunt work is uncredited, but this is likely Harvey Parry, one of the greats of his profession. For me, there is something magnificent in Mystery of the Wax Museum, absent from Dr. X. In Dr. X, something like this would be a gag. It makes no sense. These are dummies. But here, Curtiz lets it be unreal. There's nothing to undercut that baroque atmosphere. This is one of several shots repeated for the 1950s remake. The sets of Anton Grot lean further into the expressionist. The script called for something more like a universal dungeon, but Grot's modernist design makes it distinct. All of this, combined with the bravura performances, creates something opulent in its horror. Modern yet classic, fantastic yet grounded in gritty Warner's reality.
Well, everyone knew they were living together, but he was playing around with some other twist. But Winton was in bad, though, because he left before she folded up.
Also, I really prefer the love story in Mystery of the Wax Museum to that in Dr. X.
Marry me.
Marry you?
That's what I said.
Florence ignores the waiting millionaire to hook up with her combative editor.
I'll do it.
Frank McHugh, playing the editor, shot all his scenes in one day, having completed another film the night before. He then slept at the studio and started another film the following morning.
A cow does that and gives milk besides.
So it wasn't just Curtiz who drove his actors hard, but again, he did. Executing the director's trademark curious camera moves, Ray Renahan's work here is even more ambitious, but also more time-consuming, and the days got longer. Finishing late and over budget, the film could have been a disaster. Cinema attendance had plummeted during the Depression, but despite a critical mauling, Mystery of the Wax Museum grossed over $1 million off of a $300,000 budget, a huge hit for Warner Brothers. However, with colour prints more than twice the cost of black and white, this would be the last two-strip feature. The perfecting of three-strip Technicolor led to the mass junking of two-strip prints. Many films remain lost, as Mystery of the Wax Museum was for a long time. Its recent restoration shows what a breathtaking film it is. In 1953, Warner's remade Mystery of the Wax Museum as House of Wax, and anecdotal evidence suggests it was offered to Curtiz, still very much a working director. If true, he turned it down. He had already said, "I do not want to become known as the Dracula director," and we don't remember him for horror. The only other horror film he directed was likely a punishment for ignoring his producer on Captain Blood. The Walking Dead, starring Boris Karloff, is another that trades on Warner's gangster milieu. It's an interesting film, and Karloff is very good, but it doesn't have the flair of the earlier duo. Dr. X, meanwhile, got a sequel. 1939's The Return of Dr. X starred Humphrey Bogart, also being punished, and is a pretty turgid affair. This Dr. Xavier, rather than Xavier, works with
synthetic blood.
Bogart said, "If it had been Jack Warner's blood, maybe I wouldn't have minded as much." Dr. X and Mystery of the Wax Museum could be considered the first modern American horror films, eschewing classic literature and European monsters, and it's great to think that starts with Fay Wray screaming. But they're also the last of their kind. These are the first colour horror features, but it's not colour as we know it. They have a look all of their own. The pastel flesh, the vibrant greens, the incandescent flames. They don't look of their time. They don't look of any time. The obsolescence of the two-strip process has made them unique. Thanks for watching, and special thanks to our growing legions of Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, without whom we simply could not make these longer videos. From Dr. X to Hammer Horror, and from Mystery of the Wax Museum to Suspiria, which horror films make the best use of colour? Let us know in the comments below.